Old-time radio news. Hello, welcome to the Free State Projects. They're getting together, and there are numerous people who actually believe in freedom. Let's go to the newsreel footage. Yes, it's incredible but true. Some people actually believe in the idea of leaving their neighbor alone. We know it's out of vogue nowadays, not as in the hip as Michael Jackson's A Very Cool Glove, or talking about the time they first heard Thriller, but the idea of long-term ideological principles that stand true seems to be in vogue with these people. They must be freaks.
This program is brought to you by FreeKeen.com. FreeKeen.com features audio, video, and blogs chronicling the transition to a voluntary society. FreeKeen.com also has comments and discussion forums so you can be heard. FreeKeen.com.
Sorry, all right.
What's happening now? Oh, man. So, anyway, okay.
So we were on Trillion.
Yeah. So it ends up, what was great about that was that in the end, you could see that this emotional learning process of Douglas Adams, who was just a towering intellect. I mean, he was brilliant, obviously. Interested in so many things across the spectrum. And so many of the guys were associated with that Python movement. I mean, they were all friends. He worked on some of the early Monty Python stuff. I mean, they're geniuses, you know? And it was great to see that in the script, he wrote most of the drafts of the script. There were some additions done, and if you get the new version of the book, Hitchhiker's Guide, you can see the scriptwriter who finished it off has a commentary in it about what he did. It was really emotional for me to see that he had learned that there was something valuable in life. There is value, and it's love. And that really struck me. That was just awesome, because Douglas Adams was great, and to think that he spent all that time, he got so down trying to take this great achievement of his that was so much fun, taking something that was so fun and getting so down, trying to turn it into something more, and they finally did it, and they were able to get that extra sentiment in there that he got, and he didn't throw it in there just for Hollywood, you know, it meant something to him. I thought that was just great. And so before he died, he said that he was going to write a book that was going to make it right for the Hitchhiker's fans. But he died before he could do it. And the interview was in Doctor Who magazine, and it's just a fantastic interview. And what I like is that even though he wasn't able to write it in a book, he passed away before he finished it, he got that in the script. He did it right in the script. So for fans of Douglas Adams, I don't know if he was a libertarian. There's certainly some great libertarian lessons, and they kept them in the movie. They really kept them in the movie. In fact, they have even more libertarian messages in the movie, I think, than in the book in some cases. And those people who listen to our podcast, we recently did a skit, Caveman Radio skit. And we have the caveman, Og, comes on, and he goes, "Welcome back, Caveman Radio. Breaking news. Caveman Central Bank now issue leaf as currency, causing rapid inflation. Now turn. He goes, now turn, evolve, girl." And so she describes how they've turned the leaf into currency, and that was, of course, a reference to Douglas Adams in one of our skits.
That's right.
So,
I forgot about the leaf currency. That's great.
Yeah, very cool. A big hello to Mark Warden, by the way. You need real estate, contact Mark Warden in New Hampshire. He's a great guy. There he is.
We do love Mark.
Hey, Mark.
LCL Report.
LCLreport.com.
That he never watches, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Shame on him.
Yeah. So
Now that you've had Gardner Goldsmith on, I'll be watching immediately.
In our high-tech forum here, do you guys see this high-tech set?
well, you know what's really cool, because talking to Taryn, he doesn't start off like, "So what's wrong with the world?" You know, he's like, "Hey, so tell us about Douglas Adams. You think he was a libertarian?" And you know what's really cool about that is you get certain heroes, and when you realize later on that these guys were philosophically like you, but you were so young you didn't get it. Like L. Neil Smith, I picked up the probability brooch, and I got it because I had a talking gorilla on the cover. I was like 11, you know. And then now I've friended him on Facebook, and I'm going to try to interview him for the website and stuff. And it's like, oh, that is so cool. And F. Paul Wilson, man,
The guy's like the coolest. He's the man, you know? He's got Repairman Jack. He's totally outside the loop. He's dropping Lysander Spooner in his book Midnight Mass. He mentions Lysander Spooner. And then you get
he's
to
somewhere
talk to
being
him.
interviewed right now talking about Liberty Conspiracy.
You know, maybe Douglas Adams, maybe he was a libertarian. He certainly understood economics. He understood that. So maybe he was. I don't know. It's fascinating to think about, you know? It would be really fun to think about that. Oh, and I just want to mention another thing. You later learn these things. Doctor Who, I was just going to bring this out as a prop to joke around or whatever, you know, don't want to reveal all my great comedic secrets. But Genesis of the Daleks, obviously one of the greatest Doctor Who stories ever written. Terry Nation, genius, created the Daleks. I once had a very interesting conversation with some of the guys, Paul Cornell, who's an acquaintance of mine over in England, and he's one of the writers on the new Doctor Who, and some of the other guys over there at a convention, Gallifrey convention out in California when I was over at Star Trek Voyager, and I said, so what do you guys think? This is when only the new adventure books were coming out, and I said, what do you guys think? You think you might, like to see the Doctor push more on his libertarian side, the way, and they're like, oh no, he's a socialist. I was like, no, the Doctor's a libertarian. Like, no, no. I'm like, you guys are socialists. He's a libertarian. They're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, look, in the story The Android Invasion, they overtly said, and this was done in like 1975, 76, they overtly said the Doctor has a long association with libertarian causes. And I saw that years later, and I finally recognized it. When I was 11, I didn't know what that meant. But years later, I'm like, whoa, Doctor Who, man. The Time Lord was into that. And it's amazing to think about how radical that must have been. Whoever wrote that story used the term libertarian back then. In the 70s, only a few years after the Libertarian Party had been formed. So clearly,
that is pretty rad.
Something was going on, yeah. Hey guys.
There we go.
Oh, good. They can park. They're good. I know we're in the middle of the parking
That makes
lot.
the best damn interview.
Yeah, and I know Ziggy over in the UK. Ziggy's a great guy, and he has mentioned that there was one great episode of Doctor Who called The Sunmakers, a brilliant, one of the most ingenious episodes of the Doctor, which it totally mocks the entire British tax system, the television tax. It's based on Pluto in like the year 6000 or something like that, and there's basically, it's a corporate governance world, it's mercantilism, and all of the businesses and the government are combined, and so there's this one corporate megapolis of all of Pluto, and they have 6 satellites that provide radiant energy for the planet, and everything's just built up. They have like 1,000-story buildings, and nobody ever has been outside. And so they have basically indentured servitude there, and the company just makes people work for them. They scent the air with this stuff that will keep them docile, and all of the hallways in these huge buildings are named after British tax forms. It's awesome. Brilliant.
It's funny.
Yeah, so I love, and I know, you started with the question of Douglas Adams. Clearly there are some things, you look at The Lathe of Heaven, that was produced by, of all things, a public television station in New York State back in the 80s, turned into a TV movie, the original book by Ursula Le Guin. And Ursula Le Guin has a number of stories where she's highly critical of David Hume and utilitarianism. But by the same token, she's clearly in favor of individual freedom. And there are some flaws to the utilitarian side, particularly Hume and Jeremy Bentham. John Stuart Mill tried to round it out a little bit to protect individual liberty. But the whole idea of the greatest good for the greatest number can easily be turned into a tyrannical system of governance without protection for individual liberties. I mean, all governments are based on some sort of predation on individual liberties. It's the only way they can survive. It's the only way they can exist. Otherwise, you just have a business. It's voluntary exchange.
Mark Edge with Free Talk Live. You can see us at